we come to the 51st out of 52 presentations for 2014, the Parayana, the way beyond, the way across, Parayana. And that yana, as we've been talking about, is a way. And the classic understanding 2,000 years ago is that this is a great way. It's a high way. In this year, we now are just the morning before the winter solstice. Tomorrow morning at dawn, wherever it occurs on the planet, will be the winter solstice. The winter solstice is extremely important in civilization because it was the first way in which early civilization, it was only about 1,000 years old at the time, in written language, and one of the great winter solstice sites in the world is in Ireland, in the Weir River Valley. And one of the great books on Newgrange, Archaeology and Legend, Michael O'Reilly, and published by Thames and Hudson. And the aspect about Newgrange is that it was a monument that was shaped like a tomb, like a tumulus, very immense. But it was not a tomb. It was a commemoration of the whole year coming into its deep freeze, into its winter, and that the growing night and the shrinking light were at their apex on the winter solstice. And so this immense tomb structure, like a man-made hill, quite immense, was a place in which the corridor leading to the center of this so-called tomb was a rebirth of the sun. And its construction was finished in 3200 BC. And so we're looking at something that is 52 plus centuries along. And the midwinter sunrise was able to shine above the corridor where human beings walked to the center. And this light illuminated the pathway, whereas the corridor itself had the quaternary of appendages that one finds some 4,000 years later, 5,000 almost. This is the single monad model of the cosmos, Ibn Arabi's concept of time and creation. And you have the double quaternary petals, the 8 petals, the 8-fold mandala of the center, which is illumined by the quality of being able to walk that walk to the center through not just a labyrinth, but through to a very special realization. At Stonehenge, 3200 BC, carved into the farthest rock outcropping was a triple spiral. The bottom two spirals are interlinked together so that they are a continuous raveling and unraveling, which is one of the earliest infinity signs that there is. And the prelude to this in Paleolithic art goes all the way back to the earliest art in cave painting. These two spirals, by the time one got to about 4000 BC, became iconic. And the book on Newgrange has indications in the way in which the graphs, here's a photo of Newgrange in its immense lawn, and inside are the carving glyphs that are preludes to this triple spiral. The bottom two spirals together were of the great goddess. They were of her breasts, and the concourse of the resonance of her being able to nourish. She, not simply as a sexual feminine, but as a mother of man. That all of the continuity of families, generations, the species, etc., came from her willingness to accept the masculine into her deepest self, her womb, and to harbor the growth of new life, of the fetus, and to go through the birth, trauma, and that all of this is the essence of wisdom. And the triple spiral is that the upper spiral is a masculine understanding of the significance of the paired spiral. So that the triple spiral, some 3,300 years later, was the thrice greatest Trismegistus wisdom teacher. And so we're looking at something where the ability for women, for the feminine, to hold their fertility in play for an acceptance in selection at time to give then the long gestation and the final birth and the realization that this is the, if there is an archetype, this is the archetype of life. We talked in presentation 50 last week about Carolyn Porco and how almost no one knew or knows of Carolyn Porco, and how significant it is. She was born in March 6th, 1953, and graduating from Caltech and from the University, New York at Stony Brook, has worked both at JPL originally in Pasadena and eventually to Southwest Research in Boulder. She is the mother of all of the images of exploration, going from the early exploration of Jupiter into the most colossal event so far of the early 20th century, and that is the exploration of Saturn, its rings, and all of its moons. And she so excelled in starting out shepherding, learning how to direct the collation of telemetry, of images of all kinds, not just into the data or the compiling of information, but to be able to present the way in which the developing pictures, the image base, the imagination of scientific and yet artistic creativity. Ibn Arabi coined a word that in English translates as imagal. The imagal worlds, and it is a quality where Carolyn Porco has excelled. From the earliest voyagers, 1 and 2, going through a transit by Jupiter, heading out to a transit of Saturn, and then going from there, Voyager 2 went on to Uranus and on to Neptune. And all this time, Carolyn Porco was visioning for us the way in which the images, the telemetry, the way in which we are understanding a vastness of our star system. And she is in charge of all of the imaging again for the New Horizons mission to Pluto, to the farthest reaches of the major components of the star system. And in 2015, in July, New Horizons will pass by Pluto and its giant moon, Charon. Charon's about a third the size of Pluto. We know of 4 other moons now of small of Pluto. But New Horizons will not only go to Pluto and Charon, but keep going deeper and deeper into the Kuiper belt. And the Kuiper belt is like a massive asteroid belt. As the asteroids between Mars and Jupiter are punctuating the 4 inner rocky planets, the Kuiper belt is the liminal punctuation of the gas giants of our star system. And New Horizons will course through the Kuiper belt for as long as we are able to survive understanding that we're doing it. Like the Voyagers have gone into interstellar space just recently, within the last year or 2. New Horizons will go deeper and deeper into the very huge edge of our star system. And it is a tribute to Carolyn Porco that she will have been the director in charge of images of 2/3 of our star system for the first time. A real pioneer. This quality shows up in that she discovered that one of the very small moons of Saturn is, as is now listed in Daily Galaxy, Great Discoveries Channel, Science, Space, Tech, just 14, December 12th. Changing face of Saturn's Enceladus, the most habitable spot beyond Earth in the solar system, because there is not only liquid water abundantly, even though Enceladus is relatively small, a couple of 100 miles in diameter. It has a small ocean. And because of the flux of being so close to Saturn, it has geysers fountains of water, and has been doing this so long that there are water molecules that have their own resonant place in the rings of Saturn. And so we have, in someone like Carolyn Porco, we have literally a star system mother who gives birth to the imaging, the experience, the feeling tones. And one of her books that has come out is The Art of Space. And it's available, you can find it on the net. Europa also has proven to be a source of an immense ocean. So to the very giant moon of Jupiter, Ganymede. And so we begin to understand that there are oases of life available throughout the star system that are affine to organic life, and on into the Kuiper Belt, where we are understanding more and more that not only in the Kuiper Belt is there abundant water. The comets from the Kuiper Belt coming in carry a great deal of water. Many of the bodies have frozen water, ice, on their surfaces, most likely Pluto also. But Pluto, like Europa, has a reddish hue in the latest Hubble telescope high-power images, and from the 10-plus meter Keck telescopes and those in the Chilean Atacama Desert, we know now from looking at the intertwined red canals of Europa, that these are probably residues of organic life. And so Pluto may be covered by the precursors of life in organic compounds, and we will find out in July of this coming year. All of this, from Newgrange to Carolyn Porco, is an indication of civilization coming to understand where it is, what it is doing, and the relationship is growing that we are at home in an immensity. That our home is no longer this tribe or that group or this nation or this gender or this religion or this, that, and the other. We are not a pastiche either, but we are a vibrant resonance of an immensely expanding conscious community that has a harmonic that extends obviously not only in our star system, but any star system one can see, and many galactic structures that have billions of star systems. And so we live literally not as an outpost of rarity, uniqueness, but another oasis in the vastness of space-time. Our Parayana has brought again and again that the great way beyond has its rhythms, its punctuations, and that one of the large-scale structures of civilization, I've been talking about it since paired phase transforms in 2008, 2015, the future and the new past will be the 8th year of an annual cycle since finishing the Learning Civilization double program, available now my wonderful wife, Nisa, who has made this app of the Learning Civilization. It is available. And we will have it out fairly soon. It is a quality in these annual presentations of taking harmonics, resonances of the learning civilization and showing that they continue to expand, that the double spiral is a spiral of a paired chirality, a chirality of being able to go within, not only to the subatomic, but to the subparticality, into a fertile zero field. Not a 0 point, but a zero field. Points evaporate spontaneously upon entering into that field, but spiral out in a balance, in a symmetry, to not only the very large, but larger than large, into a field of infinity. But just as the integral field is a zero field of nature, the spiraling out is an infinite field of consciousness. And it is this quality of symmetry, of paired chiralities, that begins to have, in retrospect, a resonance that the patterning rhythms are an energy which is time, and that the constellation within the energy of time are the constellations of phenomena, the constellations of actions that have traction, that hold, that are related phenomenally. And so one has really a time-space, that the idea of space-time is like a reflection of it. This quality comes through again and again in these annual presentations, and in the Parayana. One of the great aspects is that there is now a magazine. It's available in 118th issue, called Infinite Energy. It is infinite in the sense not just of energy, but infinite in terms of the access to spontaneity that has a time without limit, meaning that it also has a space without limit. And one of the qualities that comes out of this, one of the great little articles in this issue of December 2014, second round iodine studies done. It's written up by Edward Esco, and one of his books is Cool Fusion, written with Alex Jack. And another companion to it is Corking the Nuclear Genie, the promise of low energy transmutation. And you see the double spiral on the cover again, scientifically, without any kind of need, without any consciousness that it references the ancient Celtic images, symbols of Newgrange and before. So that we are at last within the harmonic of what is being presented here, an understanding that one can have a surprising indication that we already are verging upon what seemed to be impossible, and to the popular mind seems still impossible, is literally of having infinite energy and a mature civilization. A star system-wide civilization free to explore on the interstellar frontier. Second round iodine studies, Ed Esco and Alex Jack and their co-frères have a small series of labs in the Berkshire Mountains of western Massachusetts, but also in Maine, southern Maine. And they call that lab construct Quantum Rabbit. They are able to take, in very low energy, small samples, in this case of iodine in a crystalline form, and a small sample of lithium. In the elements chart, the assigning of atomic number to iodine is 127, to lithium is 7, very early on. Stars generate not only fusion from hydrogen, but they make helium and they make a small amount, trace amount of lithium. 127 for iodine plus 7 for lithium would equal 134 on the chart's numeration, and that would be barium. Barium is able to have a number of isotopes where certain electrons are stripped off and one gets an ionization. The ionization of an element then has several different varieties. For barium, there are 5 or 6. They're able to show that with a very low room temperature application of analysis, that there is a minute and yet a measurable trace of the way in which there is a transmutation going on of elements within these small groupings. This happens on the very large scale at the very same time, not only with the development of the unmanned missions going out, so that the entire star system, not only New Horizons going to the farthest reaches, but Dawn going to the asteroid belt, just as New Horizons going to the Kuiper belt, Dawn at the very same time is in the asteroid belt, at the very center of 4 rocky planets, 4 gas giants, already has spent over a year around the second largest asteroid, Vesta, and sent back material. Last week I presented one of the latest issues of Icarus, the International Journal of Solar System Studies, all devoted to the reconnaissance of Vesta. And about the middle of next year, Dawn will come to Ceres, the largest asteroid, which also has a kind of a fuzzy quality which shows that it also has an overlay of something that may be ices, maybe water ices, who knows? So that with Dawn and New Horizons at the same time, the middle and the farthest that we have reached of our star system, a quality of differential consciousness has matured through prismatic persons, so that a kaleidoscopic consciousness of history has allowed for science to emerge more and more mature, so that one is able to understand now that we have an incredible refinement of quality. In the Daily Galaxy, just yesterday, also the voyage through the local interstellar cloud. different from the chemical makeup of the solar system. And the scale is many light years. The nearest star system to us, Centauri, not only Alpha but Beta Centauri, which we have discovered has a very large planet, Earth-like, rock-like. And there is also a smaller pair at Centauri. Sirius, Procyon, Altair, where Forbidden Planet was located in the classic science fiction film. And in between our star, Sol, and the Centauri system is a vague interstellar cloud that we are going through, have been going through for about 150 years, and in about 20 years we're going to emerge from it. This cloud has an analytic now where we can tell how many atoms of oxygen there are in the soot-like particle dust of that interstellar cloud. Those atoms have only about 20 atoms of oxygen per speck, whereas in our star system, those kinds of specks are analyzed to have 74. There are 54 atoms of oxygen that are missing from interstellar dust, and there might be one particle of dust for every severals of cubic centimeter space. It's very, very wispy. Smoke would be a dense fog compared to it. Our ability to analyze scientifically by the beginnings of 2015 are this refined. Why we cannot mature as a civilization is becoming more and more apparent. We are out of sync with our time. We are not living in the time that it actually is, and that its isness is not a present moment, but it is an energy maturity of presence. And without the ability to have a differential conscious visioning access, without the development of a prismatic person, not a crystal but a jewel, that has the creative imagining of an artist and the continuity of accurate remembering of real history, and thus the accuracy to any degree of specificity whatsoever of science. Our maturity as a species in not just the universe, but in the cosmos with all of its other dimensions, does not obtain, except for a few, not just the rare few, as it used to be, but by the tens of millions of sophisticated, matured men and women of all kinds. This work is a newsletter to invite them to get to know each other through a prismatic, not a focus, but a scalar. And the learning civilization is an exemplar of how that particular scalar has been represented, reworked, redone for several thousand, more than 6,000 years now, for our species on this planet. Has nothing to do with being manipulated or taught by others. We are growing up to be mature in a way in which we are the teachers. We're the guides. And the purposeful truncation of our maturation, particularly at this juncture, is meant to keep us from growing up. Because we are no longer fodder on any dimension in any way. Nor are we fodder users. We will be really free, and quite soon. We're going to take a little break and then we'll come back.